Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mbongwa, and I'll be doing a presentation on the development of Biodiversity Management Plan, a BMP, for 6 threatened medicinal plant species in eThekwini District Municipality, Mpumalanga. The use and trade of medicinal plants are embedded in African culture. Therefore, despite access to Western medicine, about 70% of South Africans still use medicinal plants, thus threatening their survival in the wild. Unsustainable harvesting and overexploitation of wild medicinal plants are some of the activities that are causing the decline in wild medicinal plants. This is just an illustration of a medicinal plant that has been debugged to be used for traditional medicine. With the decline of medicinal plants in the wild, traditional healers and other resource users are forced to buy materials from multi-markets. This is an illustration of a trader that is preparing medicinal plants to be sold in the market. The aim of the study is to engage with traditional healers and multi-gatherers to develop a plan for how we can manage medicinal plants in eThekwini District to ensure that they are both available in the wild and that there is sufficient material for use by healers. The objectives, therefore, are to investigate the demand and supply of the medicinal plants in the district, what methods are used and/or are seen as important for plant conservation, the knowledge about permit regulations with regard to collecting, travel, possession, and use of protected medicinal plants. The first phase of this project actually started in October 2016, whereby there was a workshop with the different stakeholders in the conservation of medicinal plants, where they selected the species that they thought would be suitable for the BMP. A priority scoring system was then used to select the threatened species. Table 1 is showing us the 6 threatened medicinal species that had the highest priority scoring system with regards to their conservation status, population trend, distribution pattern, popularity, demand, presence in protected areas, ease of propagation, duration to harvesting, survival to harvesting. In ascending order, it was Siphonecalis aethiopicus with 19.0 score, Bowia and Alipida were both tied at 17.3, while Bagus solitaris was 16.3, Haworthiopsis limifolia was 15.3, and Dioscorea sylvatica was 15.3. This year in March, we then went back to the communities and we started engaging with the communities in the district municipalities. We then went to the four municipalities under the district municipality, which is Bushbuck Ridge, Thaba-Chueu, Mbombela, and Nkomazi. We then went back in August and September and we conducted semi-structured interviews comprising of 140 traditional healers and multi-gatherers with regard to what can be done to conserve medicinal plants. This figure is illustrating the study sites that we conducted our research at. Luklo, Green Valley, Thulamahashe, and Shatale fall under Bushbuck Ridge Municipality. Mchindini, Mansulu, and Numbi fall under Mbombela. Emangweni and Mzinti fall under Nkomazi. In Thaba-Chueu, we did Liroro, Matibidi, Moremela, and Sabi. Results and discussion. We then asked the respondents to tell us which other species are in demand and are also scarce in the district. So what we found is that Umlomo Mnandi had a citation of 52 for 8 being in demand. Clerocaria pirea, which is Umganu, had a citation of 43, and Wabega solitaris had a citation of 38. Mind you, Wabega solitaris is an endangered species according to the red list status. For the species that they said are very scarce in the area, Isindiandia had a higher citation of 70, followed by Ingwavuma, which is Elaeodendron transvalensis 61. This is no surprise because also the red list status of Elaeodendron transvalensis is near threatened according to the red list status. And another unidentified ethnospecies called Indodebomvu was mentioned to be the most scarce in the district. This figure is actually showing us the questions that we asked based on the healer's knowledge on the demand, supply, and regulation of medicinal plants. So I will first explain the codes as are shown in the graphs. So CO is, do you collect medicinal plants? TF, do you travel very far to get those medicinal plants? EC, is it easy for you to get the medicinal plants? Do you buy the medicinal plants? Is it easy for you to buy the medicinal plants? Have you used cultivated medicinal plants before? And it's cultivating medicinal plants a solution, And do you think there are problems that can arise with using cultivated medicinal plants? And we also ask questions based on the permit regulation system. So we ask them, do they need permits to collect in the area? Do they need permits to collect outside of the area? Do you need permits when you're buying? And do you know about government permits to collect? And do you know about the government permits to use the medicinal plants? So what is shown here mostly in all the graphs of the 4 different municipalities is that most of them collect medicinal plants. However, it is very far now. They travel very far for them to collect. 92% of the people in Mbombela said they travel very far. And in all the other municipalities, 100% of the respondents said they travel very far. And also a lot of them now are buying the material. As you can see in Bushbuck Ridge, 71% said they're buying the material. And 92% in Mbombela said they're buying the material. And 100% in both Nkomazi and Thabachwewu are buying the material. The other thing that is interesting, though, is that when we ask them about collecting, they said that it's not easy to collect. However, they said it's very easy to buy the material, which is now showing us that gatherers are able to go around all these areas and get the material for the healers to actually buy, since most of them said it's easier to buy than it is to collect. And it is interesting, though, to note that most of them now have used cultivated medicinal plants before. And this is a step in the right direction, because now at least they've also now got into the idea of using medicinal plants that are conserved and cultivated. When we ask them if ever they think that cultivation can be a solution to conserving the plants, 70% of them said it can be a solution in Bushbuck Ridge, and 100% in Mbombela said it can be a solution. 87% said it can be a solution in Thabachwewu, and 70% in Nkomazi said it can be a solution. So what I wanted to know is that since they've used cultivated medicinal plants before, have they ever seen or maybe perceive the medicinal plants not to be working the way that it should be working since it's cultivated? So most of them said there are problems with regards to using cultivated medicinal plants, especially in Bushbuck Ridge. 70% said there are problems with using cultivated medicinal plants. In Nkomazi, 100% said there are, and in Thabachwewu, 80% said there are. And when I asked them what kind of problems are they talking about, number one, they said that the use of manure actually affects the potency of the medicinal plant, and so therefore the plant cannot heal as efficiently as the wild one because of the manure. And the other thing that they put is the spiritual factors that have to do with the use of medicinal plants. So they believe that, especially if we are to cultivate in a home, in a nursery instead of a home garden, a nursery can be accessed by anyone. So they believe that these medicinal plants can now be touched by people who are not spiritually clean to touch the medicinal plants, and they can therefore be spiritually polluted. And they feel like that can be a huge problem for them. And when we asked about the permits, they did mention that most of them, when they're collecting in the area, they do not necessarily require permits to collect in the area. But when they do go and collect outside, they require the permits. However, the permits that they were talking about were not necessarily government permits in this regard, but they were talking about permits from indunas and the chiefs. It was interesting, though, to note that most of them, in terms of when they are buying, they do not think that they require a permit. So it's kind of, there's this understanding that if I'm buying the material or trading the material, then there's no need for me to actually have a permit, even though it's protected. And the other interesting thing that we asked them was, do they know of government permits that are needed for them to be able to collect and also to use the medicinal plants? Most of them said they are aware of the of those permits. 66% for both in Bushbuck Ridge, 89% for both in Mbombela, and in Thabachwewu, 60% said they know about the collecting permits, but 80% of them said no, they do not require the permits in order to use those medicinal plants. So what this is showing us is that lots of them know about these permits now, but then they said that they have issues with getting the permits because they do not know which offices they need to go to, number one, to get the permits. And number two, the application forms are written in English, and English is not their mother language. So it becomes a problem for them to actually be able to fill out these forms and be able to get the permits. So this figure is showing us the time frames at which the healers observed a decline in the 6 threatened medicinal plants. So what we can see here, we gave them ranges between 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or 2 years ago. What we can see here with Alipedia cordifolia, 95 of the respondents said it started decreasing 5 years ago. With Bowia, it's 59 said it started decreasing 10 years ago. Webegia, 46 said it started decreasing 10 years ago. Dioscorea sylvatica, 64 said it started decreasing 15 years ago. Siphinicalis, 69 said it started decreasing 10 years ago. And with Haworthia limofolia, 52 said it started decreasing 5 years ago. So what we can see here is that people have been noticing this declines for the past 15 years, and we're still having the same problem even now. This is just showing that it's time for us to come up with solutions to try and mitigate the problem. So we also asked the respondents about the current harvest locations for the 6 threatened medicinal species in Ehlanzeni District Municipality. It was interesting to note that Thabo Chewu is the one that was mentioned to be the area that they can harvest all the 6 threatened medicinal species, followed by Mbombela and then Bushbuck Ridge. This is just showing that Thabo Chewu is now becoming the hotspot and most probably will be threatened in the future, and it should be a conservation priority. But it will be beneficial that the conservation officials to work with the traditional healers from this municipality to try and conserve the species, and ask them also what do they think should be done in order for the species to be able to be conserved. We also, when we got to Bushbuck Ridge in Tula Mahashe, we actually found a medicinal nursery that was started by 6 healers in 1996. So they actually said that they saw that there was a decline in medicinal plants around that time, and they thought that it would be beneficial for them to start a medicinal plant nursery. And they are able to do vegetative propagation, seed propagations, and they've now been able to grow species such as Vicalia, Xanthofolia, Umkanyagute, your marula species, Sclerocaria pirea, and here's also Mayima is also showing here. This is kind of a good initiative for us to see that the healers are also taking their own initiative to do the right thing by mitigating the decline in the wild. Cultivation is seen as the appropriate initiative to mitigate decline of wild medicinal plants, but there's a difference in opinion as to whether home gardens or nurseries will be more practical. There are also socio-cultural factors that need to be considered when cultivating, and also take into consideration the differences in local traditions. Permit regulation system is not necessarily practical for traditional healers and gatherers. With that being said, there needs to be more awareness programs about permits. Core development of management plans that balance conservation with sustainable rural livelihoods and retain indigenous knowledge are necessary prerequisites for an effective BMP, especially for species that are beneficial to humanity. Siyathokoza. Thank you.